Ladies and gentlemen, big hairy news.
Hey, kia ora e te whānau. Welcome to another episode of Big Hero News. Kia ora, Chewy.
Kia ora, Pat.
I just
How's it
realised
cracking?
you saw me holding this. Do you know what this is?
The world's smallest penis pump.
That's exactly the words I was going to say too. No, you put things on your wall in your bathroom, and you go like that, and it sucks the thing out of it, and they suck onto the wall like hooks and stuff. But I know that, and that's why I acknowledge it, because I don't want somebody else to think what you were saying, just in case. Hey, man. How are you?
Not too bad. Not too bad. Yeah, interested to see what the weekend has given me. I've kind of ducked all the news this weekend, to be honest.
Yeah.
I haven't really been looking at anything locally. I've just been following the fallout of Trump casting Ukraine to the wolves.
Gosh, yeah, and Russia going in there.
Yeah, and I noticed something really interesting. So there's a military blogger that I follow on YouTube called Preston. I think it's Preston Stewart. But he is a very matter-of-fact guy. But in one of his videos that I watched over the weekend, he described Russia trying to push Ukraine out of Kursk with this new offensive as the Trump offensive.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought, oh, that's interesting. Imagine that, being a US president and having a Russian offensive named after you.
Yeah, good grief. You might not know what's happening subtly in the background, but very subtly I'm testing to make sure that screen's working. No one would have noticed. That's how subtle.
No, we didn't notice it at all.
No one noticed it at all. So I saw you guys had a bit of trouble on Thursday night. So ironic, isn't it? Remember how every time you would not be here, then my audio wouldn't work, and it's like the one time I'm not here, then all the screens pack it in. But it looks to be just the package we use is called StreamYard. They're doing a beta thing, and it seems that they've changed some stuff, and that's all it was, because the guys had a bit of trouble on Friday night as well. But I think we've worked it out, and I'm actually watching us 30 seconds delay on the big screen over here, because I'll keep an eye on whether it's going up, which is probably why it says Pat 2 instead of Pat, because that was us doing our tests. I should probably change that.
No. Now people know. Now people know that there is a Pat clone machine. You got it with the t-shirt printer, just in case anything happened.
Yeah.
Very much like the popular film that I'm very looking forward to seeing, Mickey 17 at the pictures. Did you like how smooth that was, Pat? Funny little thing about your name, turned it into a commentary on a really fun movie.
Batman. Sorry. I've got lots going on tonight in the show, actually. Probably don't have a lot of time to ask around. But first of all, and I've just noticed that a couple of people kind of in the last few hours have signed up to be patrons. Thank you very much for signing up today. One very generous $50 patron. You won't be mentioned in this list because I made the new credits earlier this afternoon, so you will be mentioned next week's list. But so far, I want to say huge thanks to Venetia King, to Maggie H, to Jack, to Richard Faulkner, to Winston. I'm sure that's Winston Peters, probably. I mean, who else would it be? Winston. To Caden Collins and to Brent, who all became patrons in the last week. Not sure what number we're at right now. We wanted to get to 100 new patrons before the end of this month. We've got 20 days. We were on about mid-70s, so that probably puts us to about 80-ish. So we've got 20 days to get 20. Oh, it's a person a day. But remember, we're not like we're not doing this to put any pressure on. Don't feel you have to if it's a bit tight for you. It's just like if you are the kind of person who's been sitting around watching a while and you want to support what we do, and you can afford it. That's the big part. That's because someone jumping on board now and then dropping out in 2 months isn't as helpful as someone jumping on board now, paying less and staying with us all year. Because Chewy, not to, I guess. I don't know if you've seen your emails. I just forwarded it to you, but I've started planning on Waitangi Day 2026. Actually, I started planning on that today.
Read my own emails.
No. Don't read it now. but I've started planning, and things like patrons are the people who help us plan that far in the future, because we look at what comes in from you very generous people and go, okay, so we can see about that there to, so we can do an EV road trip. I wonder if we can include a company in that and drive some vehicles, and we'll see. So lots of things happening, and of course by then the ferries between the islands will be down to barrels and bamboo tops that you just pull from one side of the Gulf to the other, or from the strait to the other. That'll be what we're at. It's like Top Gear, doing a trip around Africa. That'll be what the ferries have gotten down to by the time we get there this time next year, or January next year. Yeah, anyway, so let's just say a huge thanks to those patrons, and also just remind people, if you want to be involved, you can by heading to patreon.com/Big Hairy News. There is our Patreon page. I haven't updated it much this week. These Buffer and BHN and Chewy Fufu and Pat and Chewy and Nikki No Boats beanies are on the way to this house at the moment, and when they get here we'll check all the quality and we'll do a QA on them, and I'll give Chewy some and he'll wear them every day, and then we'll decide how many we're going to import. Also, Chewy got another email just today from a nurse saying we want pins. People want to be able to put their pins like the Buffer pin, for example.
Lanyard
little kind of a wink and a nudge and a nod, a nudging nod to people who are who want to kind of express. You seen Office Space? I want some flair.
Pieces of flair.
The pieces of flair. That's what they want. If you don't know what we're talking about, after the show, Google Pieces of Flair Office Space and get a look at Jennifer Aniston 25 years ago, who looks exactly the same as Jennifer Aniston today. It's almost spooky. Very cool movie though. Okay, right. Let us also let you know about the shop is open at the moment. Everyone who ordered last week, all of your stuff got packaged up today, printed over the weekend, packaged up today, and will be getting put in on the courier tomorrow. Couriers, not just one, through the whole country. And if you're interested in being a part of what we do, head to bhnshop.nz. There are some limited hoodies there. And I think all the t-shirts, there's plenty of the t-shirts, I think, but some of the hoodies are a bit limited. And we're looking to do a new run of some of the new gear as well. Remember, everybody who orders a t-shirt, a hoodie, or a multi-pack, which of course we found out the other day is on the other page, a multi-pack of stickers. We will also include the new We Are the Grassroots sticker, which is not yet for sale. So the only way you can get one of those stickers this month is to order a t-shirt, a hoodie, or to order a multi-pack, and we'll include it in the multi-pack as well. Come next month, we'll put those on for sale.
That's like more stickers per sticker.
Yeah, man.
Really, that's math. That's marketing.
I also think if there's anyone watching from Mitre 10 and you're looking to spend some money on advertising, Chewy, Mitre 10 and BHN Venn diagram, I think, is a circle. I was at Mitre 10 in the weekend for about 8 minutes, ran into multiple people who were like, Pat, Nala, hey, how are you guys doing? So I think marketing people from Mitre 10, our Venn diagram is a circle. Everybody who listens and watches this show also shops at Mitre 10, so come on with it. That might not be a good thing because they might want to get new customers. I probably shouldn't have said that. Anywho, hey to those people we caught up with on, I think it was on Sunday afternoon. Right, Chewy.
I just have to highlight a super chat straight out of the gates because there's been a very, very kind offer made, but also the person that made it is getting absolutely rinsed in the comments. I'll bring some electric toys to Waitangi for y'all to enjoy. Now, I think you and I, Pat, are thinking, yes, electric vehicles. But the entire chat has gone, seems a bit sus. So that's for your super chat. And I guess we'll find out when we go to Waitangi. If you turn up with just a buzzing suitcase, we'll be in trouble.
Cool, guys. Okay, let's get straight into it, because we've got like 3 or 4 or 5 things to get through today. Some of them are connected. Really interested to talk about the bowel cancer thing. Another broken promise from this government. And basically, no matter how they spin it, they're saying that overall more people will survive. But what they're not acknowledging, which is absolutely indisputable, is that more Maori and Pasifika will die. So in other words, what's going to happen is there's going to be like 500 more non-Maori and non-Pasifika live, and 400 Maori will die, which gives us a net positive of 100 more, because it's actually unchallengeable and unquestionable that will happen, which I'm very keen to get you through the night, probably as the feature story. But as I was doing some looking around for Waitangi today, Chewy, I happened to catch up with a little ginger man, who we talked about Waitangi, and he came across my feed, and I played, and I thought, oh, we should see what Chippy's up to. So Chippy was on Q&A in the weekend, and really the biggest thing that I want to talk about with this is the only thing we all want to talk about with this is capital gains tax. Really, what other questions do we have at the moment? So we're only going to look at that one question. Oh, we're going to look at that one question and one slam that Chippy does of Nicola Willis. It was very, very funny, actually. He gave her a slam. But let's have a look at this. The question's being asked, are they going to campaign on a capital gains tax, which is obviously what we ask them every single time we talk to them, and Q&A asked them over the weekend.
Let's talk about the economy. Will you campaign on a capital gains tax?
We'll campaign on tax reform, and what you heard me say today, now the exact nature...
To announce it, but to rule that out.
Okay, guys. This is the only day I didn't go and reset everything up, wasn't it? 253, Chewy. Okay, here we go.
Let's talk about the economy. Will you campaign on a capital gains tax?
We'll campaign on tax reform, and what you heard me say today, now the exact nature of that, it's not just a simple issue of this one tax or that one tax. I think the issue that we're trying to address here is we've got to rejig the tax system so that the burden of taxation is more evenly spread, bearing in mind is, we've all got a responsibility to contribute to the prosperity and well-being of the country. And at the moment, the tax system does reward speculative investment, things like going and buying rental properties, more, and encourage more of
I've been listening to you, Chewy. That's your point, isn't it? You own that point. Copyright, Chewy.
that than investing in productive businesses that create jobs. And that does need to change.
So you will campaign on a capital gains tax? I mean, you don't need to give us the details.
I quite like that from Guy. And it's completely not what he said, but he's saying, yeah, so you're basically saying yes. I'd give Guy some credit there.
But you have spent years and years and years looking at that. Surely you can tell New Zealanders today that yes, we will campaign on a capital gains tax. I'll tell you the details later. But surely the time has come for you just to say you're going to do it.
We're going to be.
So here's the question for you guys to think about. We're going to keep playing this, but this is what I've written down to think about, Chewy. I guess we all know that he's not going to commit to it, right? But he's not going to rule it out either. So is him not saying today yes to a capital gain tax, is that a net negative? In other words, is that more harmful than if he had have said it? Is it a net positive? In other words, not committing to it today is more positive than negative in the media cycle, or is it net neutral? So that's what I want everyone to think about. And we'll ask that. That's my question for you at the end, Chewy. Is this is this the right thing he did, the wrong thing he did, or it didn't really matter that he's not going to commit to it?
Announcing our tax policy this year. I know that people want to have plenty of time to think about that. And yes, it will be a rejig of the tax system. But
I'm not asking you.
But the important questions, Diana, not just what new tax will have, but where will that money go?
Fair enough. For today. And my question is, will you campaign on a capital gains tax?
I'm not answering that today because we haven't locked down our policy on that. And including...
I quite like, sometimes it gets frustrating when politicians won't answer, but I quite like the directness of I'm not answering that today. It kind of gets past the I'm not playing games, I'm not doing word salad, I'm just going to say I don't have that answer today, I'm not saying it today, which I think
there's actually a really good reason for it, and I'm surprised he doesn't mention it because it just shuts down this line of questioning. But we'll talk about that after the clip.
All right.
Campaign on a capital gains tax.
I'm not answering that today because we haven't locked down our policy on that. And included in that will be consideration of if we introduce any new taxes, where the money will go.
We'll talk about that in a second, but who's driving this policy? I mean, are you in charge of this party?
Absolutely.
I like how he asks who's driving this policy when they're not talking about a policy that he won't commit to. So who's driving this policy that we're not talking about? I think in fairness, he is probably saying who's driving the tax policy, but kind of sounds like, that CGT that you're not going to commit to, who's driving that policy? It's quite funny.
And
do you want to go ahead with a capital gains tax?
Well,
that's a pretty easy question.
It is.
And
Yes.
what's the answer?
But
Is the
I'm
answer
telling you,
yes?
I'm not going to give you the answer today because I'm not announcing our tax policy today. I know everyone's obsessed about tax. Certainly the current government are obsessed about tax, but tax, not all roads lead to tax. Whatever you decide on tax, and this is the reason why I'm not answering it today, whatever you decide on tax has to fit within a broader economic plan that includes where that money goes. If you're raising new tax revenue, where does it go? Does it go to offsetting, i.e. reducing taxes in other areas, or does it go to new spending? And those are pretty fundamental questions.
And we can unpack some of that as we go. But you are going to campaign on tax reform. You told me
Absolutely.
that.
Yep.
Okay, so there will be changes to the tax system, not just the income tax rates.
That's correct. Absolutely.
Okay,
The
so
structure of our
you
tax
are
system-
going. We are getting somewhere, aren't we?
Well, you are getting something. Look, the structure of our tax system, if you look around the world, New Zealand's quite unique in the sense that the vast bulk of the government's tax revenue comes from income tax or GST.
And is that fair?
And
is
I
that fair?
No, I don't think it is
okay,
fair.
and what are you going to do about it?
Well, we'll announce that in a few months.
But is it fair if I work as a cleaner and get $60,000 a year, I pay tens of thousands of dollars in tax to the government, and if I flick an investment property, I pay zero tax? Is that fair?
No, I don't think that's
And are
fair.
you going to do something about that?
Yes.
Okay, well, that's pretty much a capital gains tax,
Well,
isn't it?
I'm not announcing our tax policy today, but
Again, I mean, that was good questioning by Guy.
Oh, I like it. I
Good
like
on you,
it.
dude. I mean, it might not be that. It might be changes to the business tax system. There might be other things as well. But yeah, I think Guy's sort of pulled it out then. So credit where credit's due.
you get the direction of travel. We do want to see that speculative investment, speculative decisions that are paying their fair share of tax. The people making their money off that activity are paying their fair share of tax. But in other areas, we actually want to encourage more of certain things. We want to encourage more savings. We want to encourage more investment in businesses and in productive enterprise that actually creates jobs for Kiwis.
Okay, can you rule out a wealth tax?
Oh, as I've said, I'm not announcing our tax policy today.
So that was quite a split with Labor last time, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, and we're working through that along with the
You
team.
don't support the wealth tax, do you?
Look, I'm not announcing our tax policy today.
There you go. So there's the clip I'm going to play, Chippy. Now I'll come to you, mate, and you're going to tell us something about the obvious thing they didn't go to, but also was his avoidance of that answer a net positive, a net negative, or a neutral in your thoughts?
I am on several different places with this. Part of me wants to go, you know what? Just spit it out. Just say, hey, look, this is my personal view of where I think this should go. And just dump it out there. And realize that National can vent their spleen as long as they like. It's Labor's job to convince the electorate that this is the way to go. And they're going to give themselves as much runway as possible to do that. The reason that hasn't happened, the reason that he's talking about, hey, look, we haven't locked this down yet, is it's got to go to their caucus. And that's coming up in a month or two, I believe. So, yeah, they have to get the party to sign off on it. So just remember, a party leader isn't a king. He still has to run it past the people that count. And I think that's what's happening here. What I think is smart, and this is, I acknowledge that this runs completely contrary to what I just said, that I wish he'd just dump it out on the floor and there you go, that's what we're doing, is he's made a game of it. Guyan's had to tease it out of him. He's pretty much walked up to that line and said, yep, that's what we're doing. But he's made it a bit of sport as well. I think in the past couple of years, there's been so much, going back to Jacinda ruling out capital gains tax, seen the feedback from everybody. Everybody's been really consistent on this. They've picked up on the fact that it's an unfair tax system. As Chippy mentions, it's income tax and GST, and that's it. We don't really have anything else. The messaging has been really, really consistent that we need to take the heat out of the housing market. That's where everyone's parking their money. It's just a tax black hole. And they need to close that. And there's flow-on benefits from that. Money starts flowing into businesses because that's a better investment. Because if it's all getting taxed the same, then why not take a bigger gamble on a business, and maybe it's going to pay out better. It's also going to stop people hoarding fucking houses when we haven't housed every Kiwi.
Yeah, I think it's a net neutral. And I think we've been fair in the past when Luxton hasn't released something that he's been asked by politicians. I think we've gone it's fair enough that he doesn't have the answer for that today. We don't need to do it. I don't know. Maybe my bias is showing it feels like that's a little bit more definitive with an answer of a no answer, but I'm just being honest. Maybe that's my bias.
It's trending in the right direction for me.
Yeah.
I'm pretty happy with this. If the tax policy is an older piece of paper with the Green Party logo crossed out and it just says Labor's tax policy, and it's just something that they've grabbed from Chloe's waste paper bin after the last election, I'd be stoked with that. Like, we're going to be really consistent going forward that the pathway here is tax wealth more and work less, tax wealth for health, all of these good things, all of these good messaging. Like, there are less wealthy people than there are middle income earners. If they can get that message to stick, that we are coming from somebody's money but not yours, and really hammer the flag to that flagpole, I think this could be a winner.
I think as well, and I want to play the piece here where I think he slams Nicola Willis. It was quite funny. You always hear people say, well, if you're going to tax the wealthy, they'll all run away. I'm going to go like, I think what the answer for that now is, I think the answer for that is, show me where that's happened. And the answer is you can't really find anywhere. Okay, you might be right. Let's test it. And if you're right, we'll change it. Let's just see. Let's see if you're right or not. Yeah. So they're about to talk about, and I think Guy uses a word like people with economic mana, people who are well respected in the world of economics. And it's only 30 seconds. Yep, sorry.
Just before you hit play on that, in my opinion, if that's the pathway that National are going to go down, we can't tax the wealthy. They'll all fuck off. The answer to that every single time is, what would you prefer? All of our tradies and nurses, or some wealthy people? Yeah. That's the answer.
All right. So have a listen to this guy on inadvertently led him into a pretty funny slam of Nicola Willis.
Do it this year.
Do you think the appetite is there now? We've seen some heavy hitters come out in support of it. The head of the largest bank, the Treasury, the World Bank, the IMF. It's hard to find someone with mana in economics who doesn't support it.
Well, I'm glad that you think the current Minister of Finance doesn't have any money in economics. I agree with you.
No, I didn't say that.
But actually, the only people who seem to be vociferously arguing against changes in this area, in this broad area, are the people who make up the present government.
Pretty funny. All right, so some news. Chewy, you mentioned, I haven't even told you this yet, Chewy, I don't think. You mentioned tax wealth more, tax work less. I'm going to try and get us those T-shirts made this week, because next Monday night at this time, Chippy is here with us.
Fantastic.
So
we
next
need
Monday,
to get
9
those
PM.
out everywhere before the budget.
And everybody in the chat can wear them, because even though we can't see you, like if we know you're wearing those T-shirts once we make them, you'll be with us in spirit. I'm kidding. We're not going to get them out by then, but I might try and get a couple of samples made, Chewy, and then we can wear them when we're talking to Chippy. Tax wealth more, tax work less. Now, another part of the conversation around the government today is this one. Courier poll out today. Now, you know, people who watch us for a long time, that we don't take much credence in like seats in the House with polls that are done this time of year. Because no matter what people say, oh, they've got the numbers to form a government, they don't. They get those on election night, and that's the only time they get them. But what we do like to look at is the trends and what's happening at the moment. And the trend at the moment for National is trending down. Now, I don't care about seats in the House, but what I do care about is asking the question, is this indicative of how people are feeling about National in the country at the minute? And I think the answer to that is yes. Labor is trending up. Is that indicative of how the country is feeling about Labor at the moment? And I think the answer is yes. Now, what you find with the numbers is basically Labor goes up and the Greens go down. So have they just taken them from there? But then again, Te Pāti Māori go up as well. But at the moment, according to this one poll, one rando poll, which often has a right-wing lean, Labor at 34.1, National at 33.6. I put a tweet out today that said, if this is what the Courier poll is saying, what does that really say about what the country thinks about national at the moment? We're not going to stop quite there either, because we go to preferred prime. Don't care about that, the seats in the House, what we do, but preferred prime minister, which also is indicative of how the people are feeling about our leadership. And we've got, well, they haven't given us the numbers, have they? They haven't given us the numbers. I can't see the numbers.
Oh, look at that trend.
You can see
that
Chippy.
Delicious trend.
Chippy is ahead of the Prime Minister and preferred Prime Minister right now. And yeah, the trend, well, when was this? This was June 20. Okay, so when was the election? October 23. So he sort of reached his peak at about 35% about the middle of last year. And since then, it's just been trending down, 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 down. And some of the people that he's trending down with will be people who voted for the right bloc. There'll be people who voted for ACT, who think he's a spineless jellyfish. There'll be people who voted for National, and they're going, you're letting these far right guys get away with nothing. So a good, there'll be a percentage of this trending down, a percentage of his unhappy people who are also his voters. Whereas if you have a look, I mean, Chippy stayed, but let's be honest, let's be fair. Yeah, he's a little upwards, but he stayed pretty much consistent the whole time. You know what I'm saying? And then the last one I wanted to look at was favourability. And as you can see, Hipkins, the yellow is the plus minus. So the only person in positive favourability is Chipkins. Luxton's bad. Seymour's terrible. Jones is terrible. Van Velden's terrible. Winston Peters a smidge into the negatives. Chippy has a positive favourability. So the trends around that are interesting. The trends around that are saying the electorate is voicing displeasure with this current government. And I guess I would wonder, Chewy, pose the question, how do they get out of this slump? What do they need to do? Because if they're slumping now, that means what they're currently doing is not exciting their base. And what they're currently doing is xenophobic, racism, slamming Māori. It's all these things. That's not working, Mr. Luxton. If you want to be Prime Minister 2.0 in 18 months from now, how are you going to turn around that Titanic? Because you're slumping with what you're doing now. You've got to do something different, just from a leadership point of view. Chewy?
Here's the thing. Both Winston and Seymour are an albatross around his neck.
Yeah.
Because they're forcing him to do stuff that's unpalatable with the middle. It's just nonsense that he's getting dragged into, and he's not strong enough. He's not an experienced enough political operator to know how to handle those two career politicians.
Yeah, for sure.
That know this game. Like it's like being invited to a board game night where the two people that invited you as a third know all the rules and have been playing it for ages. And you've literally just stopped being an airline CEO and come along for the ride. I think that analogy works.
I'm with you.
It's a little
only
bit
because I know somebody who every time we do board games at their house, it's just like, just do this, and you basically spend the whole night sitting back watching them play your game for you. So I understand.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I think what we've seen in the media today, because of course people have brought this poll to him and gone, "Hey, this doesn't look good, bro." Is his only response is to try and laugh it off or get pissy, and sometimes in the same interview, it's quite bizarre. But yeah, I know people and I know you've said this point, but I'm just going to say it again. I know people put so much stock on polling. And so much of it is rubbish and just headline generator. But what we want to look at here is trends between polls. So if the next couple of polls show a downward trend in preferred Prime Minister, well, then that's a trend that I want to see. I want Luxton to get to the point where all he's hearing in his headphones is whoop, whoop, altitude, pull up.
Yeah. This is the worst as well. This is the worst trend of all the ones. This is the worst. This is about if people trust the Prime Minister, like the Prime Minister, think the Prime Minister's running the country well, trust for what he's going to do in the future. And just for the last, what are we now, March? So that's, let's say 10 months, 8 to 10 months. It's just been down, 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 down. That's the most concerning. I mean, you could look at the seats and you could look at that and they're all kind of, there's not such a huge drop. It's been pretty consistent with one recent drop off and it's been pretty consistent with one recent gain. But that one there for who people think should be Prime Minister, yeah, that's a concern. And that's what we always talk about with this research. It's always the preferred Prime Minister is a completely valid thing to poll, because that tells us how the nation's feeling about the Prime Minister and who would do the best job. And by the slimmest of margins, the country is currently saying Hipkins would do a better job, but by the slimmest of margins.
I think there's another comparison here as well, right? Is now people are really hearing the sharpening of knives at National because this trend is so sustained.
Here comes Erica.
Right? You just keep coming down. And people will be sort of looking at that and going, well, if we're going to take the next election, then we need someone that people don't think is an inauthentic tosspot.
Yeah.
So yeah, there will be people trying to shore up their own support amongst the party. And I think Gary's just mentioned it here, and it's a rumor that I've heard as well. My reaction was very similar to Gary's here. Rumors of Maureen Pugh phoning round to check if she has the numbers to roll Luxton made me laugh so hard I nearly pooed my pants. I think there's as much chance of that happening as her getting struck by lightning an unprecedented 4th time. It's my favourite fact about her, someone that Simon Bridges called absolutely fucking useless. She's been struck by lightning 3 times. Phenomenal. Learn the lesson.
Let's get some of these chats, unless there's anything you want to finish up on, something absolutely
there is one thing I want
to
there is one thing I want to finish off on, because there's a comparison, right? People are going, well, why are we talking about Luxton being rolled when Chippy has consistently been under that mark? And I'll tell you what the difference is. Chippy has had the support of his front bench and his party. There has not been any rumours of it. People have gone to Kieran McAnulty and gone, do you want to have a go? And he's like, no, I don't.
And Kieran's basically gone, stop fucking asking me. Let me just say it for the last time, fuck no. Now, he hasn't said that, but that's been the vibe. It's been like, get the fuck away from me with this question.
Yeah. So I think Hipkins has the support of his party.
Yeah.
And if they get their ducks in a row on this tax policy and they come to, for lack of a better word, market with a coherent message that is simple and can just drum into the foreheads of voters in a way that it sticks, I think they're potentially onto a winner. We've had a short, sharp shock of right-wing nonsense, and I think it's given people a real oh shit moment. This is terrible. Things haven't got better. You can talk about the economy as much as you like, but grocery bills haven't come down, your mortgage payments haven't come down. There's all of these extra expenses, and things are objectively worse. So it's not working, Luxton.
Also interesting just to see in those numbers as well. ACT dropping off pretty much. New Zealand First and ACT all dropping off. Now I know, like I said,
good.
But what I'm saying is, I mean, the Greens dropping off as well, but then you got Te Pāti Māori picking up. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting next 18 months. I wonder what will happen in the polls when Seymour takes over from Winston as Deputy Prime Minister, if anything. Anyway. All right, let's get some of these chats. Thank you guys for the super chats. Kooky Nick just wants to pay his fees. Appreciate that. EVE says, I'll bring some electric toys to Waitangi for y'all to enjoy. And then later on, he says...
Because he's getting rinsed in the comments.
To clarify, they run on batteries and have variable speed. It doesn't sound any better.
It's not helpful.
It doesn't sound any better. You can ride on these toys. I'm still not, I actually know exactly what they are. You know what they are too, Cherry. Those fat little
yes, I do.
motorbikes.
I would look forward to that, riding the product that is presented to me.
JC and the Pigeon Cats, it would be my pleasure, says JC. Tane says, kia ora tātou, late fee. Tane again says it twice. There's actually 2 of them there, exactly the same words. Thank you for being late twice, I guess, if that's the case. Kiwi Bird Chippy, don't do a Luxton, straight answers, please. Lurchify says, here's the thing, a CGT is not an economic issue. It should be. It's a political issue. NACT will demolish it given enough time. Wooming says, Guyan tried to get a captain's call from Hipkins. Never going to happen. And if Hipkins did that, he would be facing a Labour membership utterly pissed, which I guess is what you're talking about, isn't it, Joey?
Yeah.
Any other chats here that you've started that you want to get to in particular?
Yes, I wanted to get this one. Ben makes a good comment here. Scandinavian countries that have increased their capital gains tax have only seen a small handful of their wealthy people leave, less than 0.5%. They also had taxes to penalise if they leave. Exactly. Like if they're going to leave, then fucking clip their ticket on the way out. And Lurch here with another good comment. Unity won't guarantee a win, but lack of it guarantees a loss.
Yeah, fair. All right. I want to go on to something a bit different today. It's some American stuff, but it's really interesting. I was watching Zateo today, and I got a little bit of Mehdi Hassan coming out of there. And
I tell you what,
Hassan,
following that channel, chat, do. It's fascinating content, and some of the interviews that Mehdi Hassan is doing are just absolute top tier.
So Mehdi Hassan spoke to, and his name eludes me now, so I'll just go to the show notes, Joe Walsh. Joe Walsh is a former Republican congressman. And Joe Walsh wanted to have a conversation. You can see Joe Walsh is in mid-scream there. He does spend a lot of time quite literally screaming. But the reason I wanted to show this, it's just a couple of minutes, is actually, we talk about this a lot, about how in particular the right like to play whataboutism. You mention something about national, they go, yeah, but what about Jacinda? You know, you mention something about something down that's not good at the moment, let's say, I don't know, an economic thing, and they go, oh yeah, but the spending under Labour. And Mehdi Hassan does something really good here when talking about Israel and Hamas to show how to answer these questions. So the content's interesting in and of itself. Actually, you know what I'm going to do, Chewy? I'm just going to refresh it because that last time we did this, it decided not to work as in that last clip. So I'm just going to do a quick refresh on 1321 and then make sure it's still on 1321 and then I'll push play. It's actually entertaining. It's good content anyway when they're talking about Israel and what's going on there in Hamas and, you know, the war crimes that are being. I had an interaction with someone the other day, Chewy, a religious person, and we were talking about Israel, Gaza, and the conversation was so funny. Well, when I say funny, I mean interesting. That we started off by talking about Russia, and the gentleman I was speaking to, who was a churched person, kept using the word occupied land to do with Russia and Ukraine, and how, you know, Russia and the occupied land, it's not okay. Russia and occupied land. And then we started talking about Israel and Gaza, and I went, you mean the occupied land? And he looked at me. And I kind of went, because, you know, that's just what we've been talking about. And you evoked the word occupied land, how it wasn't, and it's kind of the same. And the conversation didn't really go anywhere. But the thing that I realized in talking to him is what I will say to these people now, and this is unchallengeable, because it's the legal definition of it, is that if you support Israel and all Israel does, then by definition you are supporting war crimes. I mean, the person I was talking to had that constant, but they drop leaflets and tell them to move. Yeah, that's called, what is it? It's forced relocation. It's a war crime. You're not allowed to do that. It's a war crime. So if we can get as far as, yes, person X supports Israel and they're okay with the war crimes, or even, and yes, Israel are committing war crimes, that's actually a step in the right direction. But most people will then try and play games and say they're not war crimes, when just every definition is they are. And the thing that we've always talked about, how when you go on to media, when we see people going on to media, they're constantly having to state that they do not support the actions of Israel. They do not, rephrase, of Hamas. They denounce Hamas, but people never really ever get asked, do they denounce Israel's actions? And now we'll go back to Mehdi Hassan, because it's kind of what he's doing here again. That that actually bombing of civilians, that forced removal of people, the word's just leaving my head, is a war crime. There are other war crimes going. Do you denounce those actions of Israel? And people like this former congressman, they kind of can't, because they're involved with lobby groups and stuff that give full-throated, wholehearted, 100% unchallengeable support of Israel. But let's have a look. Oh, I probably should put the mute off, shouldn't I? Here we go.
You are a supporter of the Israeli government, so I'm going to ask you about Israel.
And
You can do whataboutism all you want. Again, that's what MAGA people do here. When you ask them about MAGA, what do? They blame the Democrats. So let's not play that game. Let's ask you about Israel.
Mehdi, it's not the MAGA game. I'm going to say yes. Israel's made mistakes. I'm going to say yes.
War crimes.
Israel.
No, I'm asking war crimes.
Israel. Call it what you want. Israel.
No, I'm asking you to call it.
And I'm going to tell you. I don't know. I'm going to tell you.
No, Joe.
No,
I'm not going to let you run away with it. You can shout all you want. 335 bullets fired into a car with children. Is that a war crime?
I don't.
So this was an example. Joe, you probably know it. There was, I think, children and uncle and aunt and stuff that were in a car, and from a tank, 335 bullets fired into the car, and you know, it's not that there's the odd, you know, like it's not the exception to the rule, Chewy. It's the rule. This is not, don't just pulling out one thing. There's dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of these examples.
Run away with it. You can shout all you want. 335 bullets fired into a car with children. Is that a war crime?
I don't. You know what? Could be. Investigate it. But God damn it,
it was investigated, Joe.
This is what Hamas does all the time.
Joe,
hiding behind civilians is a war crime. You know what slays me about you?
By the way, you said I see you say this all the time.
What?
Hiding behind civilians, and yet when Israelis actually use Palestinians as human shields, you don't say anything. Last week it emerged. I checked your Twitter, Joe. You can correct me.
What?
Last week it emerged that an 80-year-old man, Israeli press reported, was being used as a human shield. They were taking him into houses, putting him in front of them, an actual human shield. Right, they were using a Palestinian man.
But maybe,
they've done that many times. Do you know they've said? Let me finish the sentence. They send Palestinians into tunnels in Gaza. Have you condemned that as? Have you condemned that as a use of human shield?
Was not aware of it, and if I was aware of it, I'd condemn it.
It's all over the Israeli press.
Why are you not acknowledging that this is Hamas's policy, and this has been their policy from day one?
What I acknowledge about Hamas is irrelevant because I don't support Hamas.
Let me hear you say it.
I don't support Hamas. Do you support Hamas?
No.
Do you support Hamas?
No.
Do you support Hamas?
No.
I don't support Hamas. So that's done. Do I support Israel?
Stop for a minute.
Can
it's
I finish
not
a
done.
sentence?
No.
Can I finish a sentence?
Not when you don't let me finish sentences.
Joe, let me finish mine. But I promise I'll let you give a long answer. I'll give you a long.
So this is the bit coming up right now, which is really good.
Wow.
But this is a really good way to further the conversation away from whataboutism and what media's about to do.
If you let me finish this one sentence. I don't support Hamas. Do you support Hamas?
No.
I don't support Israel. Do you support Israel?
Yes.
So that's what we're going to talk about. Now I'm going to ask you.
Beautiful, eh? Isn't that beautiful? So it's got, the conversation's got nothing to do with Hamas, because we both are in agreement that acts of war crimes have been committed by Hamas. We agree. Where we disagree is Israel. So let's talk about that. Let's go about 25 seconds, then I'll let you at it, Joey.
No.
It's very simple. You're here to support Israel.
No, but stop. But Hamas.
Why don't I talk about something we both disagree with?
Hamas has been the governing entity in Gaza for how many years? So yes, you do need to talk about Hamas, because Hamas did what they did on October 7th.
And we've condemned it. Do we both condemn
has a history. Do you condemn? Yes. Do you condemn?
But you're not condemning Israeli war crimes. That's what I don't understand. You're trying to dodge it with whataboutism about Hamas. It's a very simple question. I can keep going. Let's play a clip.
Do you want to play this? He shows him a clip now of a grandmother and a child waving a white flag. I'll show it. It's all blurred out, so we'll be fine because this is already been on YouTube. And just to say, there's example after example, just in case anyone is watching who doesn't really know what's going on. He shows a clip of a grandmother waving a flag, walking with a grandchild, and being taken out by an Israeli sniper. Obviously, that's all blurred. You don't see anything, so don't panic. But just as an example of what's going on.
Here, let's play a clip for you to watch. We got a clip of a grandmother. Here's a grandmother. Maybe you're not aware of this one. This is a Palestinian grandmother in her 50s. She's holding a child, right, in her arm. He's got a white flag. She's shot in cold blood by an Israeli sniper who's...
Maddie, I don't know what the hell that was. That's not...
And then the next offence is, I don't know. I've never seen that. How we prove it to be real?
You can justify anything. Like it's an intellectual and moral inflexibility. You have picked your team, and you will not be persuaded.
Yeah.
And when it's shown in that way, it's stark. Like, and I don't understand it, right? Because people on our side of it seem to have absolutely no trouble saying the actions of Hamas at the start of this latest outburst absolutely fucking morally reprehensible.
Well, I would go personally. I would
hiding
go,
amongst civilians.
At the music
Terrible.
festival was a terrorist attack. I have no qualms in offering that as a solution as to what Hamas did. I don't know. It probably is an act of a war crime. I don't know if it would fit into the definition, depending on what Hamas is technically, but it's certainly an act of terror. It's terrorism, without question. War crime.
Easy.
No problem.
Easy. Easy, done. The Hamas, not good dudes. But you can't take this without the context around it, which all of these guys seem to want to do. They want to chop all of this up and put it in a nice little box that just shows a moral superiority or a cultural superiority in this whole thing. And there's people going, why are we watching this clip? It's so shouty. It's about showing you a tool when you're confronted with that same thing.
Yeah.
Like rule out the static, rule out the extra noise, rule out the talking points that they want to hit you with, and get to the nub of the question. What's the disagreement?
Yeah.
And Pat, there's a reason Pat put it up. Medi did a masterful job there of absolutely cutting to the bone of the contention. One person is happy to condemn one side, the other person is not going to be moved. And it doesn't matter how much evidence you put in front of them. And there's tons.
Yeah.
Like if the argument is hiding behind civilians, there is so much documented proof of Israelis marching kids in front of their vehicles or elderly people in front of their vehicles, or putting civilians into tunnels before they send troops in. There's so much. And what I hate about this whole thing is we got to a ceasefire and this just disappeared out of the news cycle.
Yeah.
Right? Israel today cut off power to Gaza again. Aid convoys still not getting in. A ramp up of violence and persecution happening now in the West Bank, which had nothing to do with the attacks on October 7th. Completely, like Hamas isn't there. Different government. Doesn't matter. It shows the whole thing. It is about land confiscation. It is about persecution of the Palestinian people. And I don't see how you can, like, even if you're going, yeah, I think Israel's justified in responding to these attacks in October, I can't see how you can sit here almost 2 years later and go, yeah, I'm still fine with it. I just don't see how you can.
Yeah. And look, it was just beautiful from, the subject matter's not, but the way that what Medi does sometimes, like me and Chewie have been talking about this for 2 years now, right? And we've been saying for 2 years, why do they always get asked in panels to denounce Hamas, but no one gets asked to denounce Israel? Then Medi comes along in the last 6 months and starts using that narrative in a mainstream sort of bigger audience. It's like, great. And then Medi expands upon that question. I'm completely going to steal that. Do you denounce Hamas? Yes, so do I. Okay. Do you denounce Israel? No. Well, I do. So here's our point of disagreement. So Hamas is irrelevant. We agree on that one, basically. But we don't necessarily agree to it because, as you say, there is a much broader question about, if you keep someone in a rat cage for 20, 30, 40 years, is there not an expectation at some stage they will bite back? I mean, is that not just an expectation? That might be a bit more of a kind of philosophical conversation to have with someone on the right. May not be able to do it. But at least the denounce. No, I don't. There's conversation there.
The classic one that you heard there as well is like they elected Hamas. When was the election?
2008, I think.
Cool. I love that fact of like, yeah, the election was 2008. They haven't had one since. And the average age of people in Gaza, and it's like over half the population wasn't even alive then.
Yeah.
So then
Under
why
18.
are they paying the price?
Yeah.
Why do you bring that up like they had an election last week and they all voted?
Yeah.
Like it's just foolish.
I'm going to move on to something else, but before we do, because Ihaka has just offered a very generous super chat, and it completely fits in with what we're talking about now. Palestine will be free, probably free, I'm guessing. Or is it free?
Yeah, that's a Palestine flag emoji sort of thing.
So you've got that
it
on
looks
there.
like it's goats.
Oh yeah, I can see my YouTube over here. we could do this. Look, hang on. We'll do this and put this back up. Like that. See, there it is. There, right there.
Yeah.
There we go. I put this tweet out today and on Blue Skies, but I don't know if you saw it or not, Chewy. This person here woke up this morning in America to be the face of white supremacy.
That's a bad choice. I wouldn't make that choice.
I don't know if she actively made it, but there is this social media / platform called Jubilee. We all know about Jubilee. And they do this thing called Surrounded, where they have one person in the middle and 20 people around them with the opposite view. Well, latest episode, Chewy, was friend of the show, Sam Seder. And Sam Seder was talking to 20 conservatives. And I have to say, we're sometimes pretty critical about Stephen Crowder when he goes to a university and he speaks to 20-year-olds because he's an adult and he's got well-formed opinions and he's heard it all before. Not that I have a problem with Sam or any of this, obviously, because he's not a part of this. He's just set it up. Lots of young people here. So I wonder how much of a grain of salt we have to give them because they're all they look like they're all university students. And I just want to put that caveat out there for, young people saying stupid things that they wouldn't say maybe if they were 10 years older. Just putting it out there, trying to be a little bit generous. So basically, Sam gets on and he asks a question and then they have a chance to respond. And I'm going to play you this one clip of the person who woke up to choose to be the face of white supremacy today. He basically says that Christian nationalists and billionaires are the only ones who are benefiting from Donald Trump's election. Paraphrasing. And they do a countdown. The first one to the chair gets to speak. And this is how it goes.
Hi.
Sam.
So I actually think that this liberal world order needs to be thrown away completely. And
Did you get that so far? The liberal world order?
Jesus.
They've dropped the new, now liberal world order.
I think Christian nationalism would be a good alternative. What we're seeing right now is just
congratulations.
And thank you. And I think what we're seeing right now is a culture of death. This is the most suicidal generation ever. We have millions of children.
This girl in the background here does not like what her fellow conservative is saying. There's one point that she puts her head in her hands based on the answer that comes out of this lady's mouth. Now, the other thing to let you know, Jubilee does this thing is that when you get voted out, so see in the bottom left-hand corner, it says 2 out of 20. That means there's 2 flags up. Once it gets to 11, the person talking has to leave the seat no matter what. This is how they sort of play the game.
Children dying by abortion. People aren't even reproducing. We don't even have like a...
Should we mandate people reproduce?
No, I don't think we need to mandate. We can just stop them from killing their kids.
You want to outlaw abortion?
Yes.
Yes. I mean, we have a fundamental disagreement on this, and my claim was that if you voted for Trump, it would be to your benefit if you want to outlaw abortion.
I think it would benefit everyone.
Yeah, I disagree. I think that women should have the right to choose.
I think that it would benefit everyone to bring back the family unit, to stop having women just thrown into the workforce.
Maybe we shouldn't allow women to choose to divorce unless their husbands say it's okay.
I mean, I don't really believe in divorce in general, so sure.
All right. I mean, this I think, though, reinforces my point that...
Yes, it gets worse. It gets worse. I'm sorry. It gets worse.
That if you are
But it would be better for society. It would be better for everybody in society. And same with xenophobic what's the problem with xenophobic nationalism? Don't you think that's better for Americans in general?
You see the head and the hands. You got to see the head and the hands again. Xenophobic Christian nationalism is better in general.
What's the problem with xenophobic nationalism? Don't you think that's better for Americans in general?
Xenophobic nationalism is better.
We should have a coherent culture. Everyone should be a part of the same culture. We should have assimilation.
Do you get to choose what the culture is?
We already have a dominant culture.
What is
based
the dominant
on
culture?
European and Christian values and identity. That is the dominant culture. It's rooted in European identity.
So your argument is that
has been the dominant culture.
Just to be clear.
And we're not letting people assimilate to that. We're saying you should keep your culture, and this is why our culture is so divided.
Your argument is that Trump is good for those who want a dominant white European culture.
I mean, that is what America is. It's rooted.
Trump is good for a dominant white European culture, and she says yes, and that's why she's woken up to be the face of white supremacy today. I'm not finished yet, Joe. There's a bit more to go. What is it again?
Oh, there's more.
There's more. It's a couple more, about 90 seconds more, because at the end Sam wraps up with basically going, I think you've done the job for me. I don't know if you can hear it. Either there's a murmur in the room, and normally there's no murmur. They just wait. And the room is not with her, unfortunately for her.
In European identity and Christian values. That's what it has been. Would you really disagree with that? What is it then, if that's not the identity of America?
Well, I think the identity of America...
For the majority of time, America's been a country. You don't think that's been the identity?
Well, actually, no. I think actually the identity of America has been, for better or for worse, a melting pot in that regard.
Yeah, maybe since like the 1960s. Even then, even we had this idea of a melting pot literally means assimilation too. It means melting. It means you're assimilating to the dominant culture. Is that not what melting means?
No, just by definition, no. If you put a whole bunch of ingredients together, even if you have twice as much sugar as anything else, it doesn't all become sugar. The melting pot, you put all these ingredients together and they all become sugar. They make a new product. They make a new product is what they do. That's the idea of melting.
And now instead we're saying there's something wrong with xenophobia.
Culture. No. I mean, look, I got to be honest with you, you and I have a fundamental disagreement. We will never see eye to eye on this. It's a choice. And people, I think what you're expressing, though, is really what the Trump movement at its heart is about.
Yep.
And I think that's problematic.
I disagree. I don't think Trump's anywhere close to being a Christian nationalist. That's ridiculous. Trump's basically a Democrat from 15 years ago when it comes to social
So you don't think that he's conservative enough for you?
Oh, definitely. Nowhere close. No.
He's not xenophobic enough for you?
No, he's trying to import a bunch of H-1Bs. Are you kidding?
Right. Oh, so you want to get them out too? Yeah. No, I think you're making my argument for me.
All right.
Well,
okay.
I'm just saying he's not even in this. Okay.
There you go. So Trump is not hardcore enough for that young lady. Remembering that she's probably 19, 20, give her some grace, but that'll have come down through various channels to get to her.
Yeah, that's what you've seen there is the argument of immersion. She has been fully immersed in those worldviews for years. I think, Chet, you would have seen my face through that. There's a couple of questions. Have I seen this format before? No, that's the first time I've come across it. What really shocked me there is in the mid 2000s through to the late 2000s. I did a bit of work for an anti-racism group where I'd look for people online, New Zealanders online, building those links with overseas white nationalist groups. So I used to hang out and impersonate neo-Nazis. And I'd hang out in US-based web forums and I'd see the way that they talked and that sort of thing. What that young lady was doing was parroting stuff that was hidden in the darkest recesses of the internet in the mid-2000s.
Yeah.
And now she has all the full confidence to spew out views that wouldn't be out of place in the 1930s Germany. A homogenized white Christian nationalist culture. This country is founded on conquest and ours is the dominant culture and everybody needs to fuck off or assimilate. It's so out in the open. I know people like to say that violence isn't the answer. Someone spewing those sort of lines needs to get a chair to the face. There's Sam going, we have a fundamental disagreement. Yeah, that's when the furniture starts flying.
I don't think that's part of the format. I don't think that's part of the format, Joey. I don't think there's a chair off the top row as part of their format, unfortunately.
So are you saying that we have found a hole in the market, Pat?
Maybe.
I'm just shocked. Like I know people have these views. I'm more comfortable in thinking that those people know that they can't voice those views out loud because
Not
bad
anymore,
things
bro.
will happen.
Not anymore.
Like this is what it and look, we've talked about the Christian fundamentalists in the National Party and the Christian fundamentalists in ACT, and people with some very, very batshit insane race-based policies in their head, Rich and Preble, you fuck. It's always simmering there. And when these people get some oxygen, well, they see a space, they feel emboldened. And in America, look, Trump winning a second time, what greater signal could there be? The shred of hope I have is that woman was like, no, Trump's not evil enough for me.
Yeah.
But
He needs to
people
do
like
more.
her that think like her see Trump as a way forward. And that's exactly what he is. Whether he's a useful idiot to the Russians or a useful idiot to the Christian fascist right over there, he is absolutely at every step advancing somebody's agenda. Whether he believes in it or not, he sees a way to fame, glory, and history. Oh, yuck.
XLDS says, "Oh my God, here comes Joey with his future."
It's
Kiwi
the
Bird
only
says,
way.
"The blonde lady is a supporter of the Third Reich." Tiffany says, "Israel was the fix to Europeans' anti-Semitism." And EV East just reminds us it's also four-wheel drive, and it will be my pleasure.
Now we're getting to some specifics.
Yeah, I nailed that out. BHN steel chairs? No, we don't. We don't steal chairs. Wrong.
No, I've never stolen a chair.
Okay, let's get into the last topic for the night. We are talking about Simeon Brown was also on Q&A over the weekend. I've chosen not to use that footage, but just use a small chat he had this morning on breakfast because they were talking about the changes to bowel cancer. Now, unequivocally, without question, this is a broken promise from National. I'll play you the footage as we go through this. But what's basically happening is Maori and Pasifika have bowel screening from, I think, either 55 or 50 at the moment. It might be 50. And what this government's doing is it's cancelling that and it's having bowel screening for everyone at 58. So currently, Māori and Pasifika had it at 50 or 55, whatever it was, and everyone else had it at 60. Obviously, if you need it, like for example, my dad got prostate cancer. So even though I was too young for the prostate cancer screening, I said to my doctor, I'd like to get my PSAs tested. And they went, yeah, of course, because you have a history of it in your family, so you get made an exception to. So if there's a reason to have your bowel cancer screened earlier, of course, you can get it done earlier. But a generic rule that says Māori and Pasifika, I think it was 50, everyone else at 60, what they've done is they've brought it down to 58, and it's going to save lives. But what they can't tell us, Chewy, is how many more Māori and Pasifika will now die because that early screening age has been raised. And, they've got no answer to that question. None whatsoever.
We've got Dr. Rawiri Jensen coming on the program just after 7 a.m. around bowel cancer screening for Māori and Pasifika. You've cut that targeted funding to lower the age for everyone for bowel screening, right? Given Māori are diagnosed younger, have worse outcomes, how does that improve equity?
Well, we're actually going to save more lives. We're going to save another 176 lives over 25
more
years.
white lives.
176 lives over 25 years. That's what they're going to save with dropping it from 60 to 58. So in other words, if you do your maths, maybe they'll save 300 non-Māori and Pasifika lives, but 125 more Māori and Pasifika will die, which makes a net positive, Chewy, of 175 more lives. Because you actually, it's unchallengeable that if you're moving the screening from 50 to 58, people are going to get bowel cancer in that time period and not know and die from it. You can't challenge this. I think Jenny May went a bit softly on him because it's an unchallengeable fact that if you raise the age of eligibility higher, people are going to be in that gap getting bowel cancer and not know about it. You can't actually challenge that.
76 lives over 25 years by lowering it for everyone to 58, and we've said as a government we want to match Australia as quickly as possible, and the capacity of the system to deliver colonoscopies is the key factor behind that. So we are going to lower it as quickly as we can so that all New Zealanders can have that access to that to that screening. And the advice we've seen is that the age-related incidence of bowel cancer is similar across all population groups, and so the right decision is to reduce it by age for all New Zealanders, and then to move it further as quickly as we can as the capacity to deliver more colonoscopies allows.
So the data that you're talking about is from where?
The Ministry of Health.
Okay, and has that been released, or will you be releasing
it?
that?
This week.
When will you,
Be
this
released
week?
this week, yeah.
Okay. Also, you talk about lowering the screening to 58 will save 700 lives?
Correct.
Yep. How many lives will be lost by cutting that funding to Māori and Pasifika?
Well, it's going to save more lives.
Then it's going to lose. But the question is, how many Māori and Pasifika will die? Okay, let's not talk about the big. We're breaking it down into categories now. How many? Because we could say how many more women will be saved, how many more men would be saved. Sure. How many over 65? You have those numbers, but what about the other side of it? How many more Māori and Pasifika will die because you're removing funding from their early screening?
Well, it's going to save more lives. 176 more lives over 25 years because we're lowering it for all New Zealanders. And that's based on the advice we've received from the Ministry of Health. It's the right decision to do, and it's our health system being delivered based on the basis of need. That's what we're focused on doing.
So no stats on Māori and Pasifika? How many lives will be lost as a result of taking that funding?
Well, the advice was we would save more lives by reducing it for all New Zealanders, and that's the right decision to do.
There's a really important thing he said in there. Let me just replay it for you.
Health, it's the right decision to do, and it's our health system being delivered based on the basis of need.
A health system based on need. Now, we know that's horseshit, because if Māori and Pacific Islanders die earlier, then their need is earlier. I know I've said this a lot on this show, and I know that some of you will be sick of this, but the reason, and it's normally about David Seymour, but this government comes across as, if not racist, certainly racially divided. You put whatever word in you, is anytime they want to clarify things or classify things, they're happy to classify things in all sorts of areas: age, sex, nationality, where you live in the country. But as soon as it comes to race, all of a sudden, no, we can't categorize there. You don't see someone who's in a wheelchair, and you don't see funding for going into the front doors of buildings based on everyone's need, because only a couple of people in wheelchair need that ramp, Chewy. So that ramp going into that building, we shouldn't have to have that, because based on what most of us need stairs, and that ramp is an extra cost. So based on what most people need and giving us quicker access to that building, for those few people there who are inconvenient, you see what I mean? It doesn't work. Yeah. It doesn't work in any other setting, which means it doesn't work in this setting just because one of the categories is Māori or Pacific. Māori or Pacific die much younger. They get bowel cancer much younger. So if this is based on need, then they need the screening much younger, Chewy.
Like, there's a very simple phrase. Simeon Brown is on the screen, and whatever he is talking about and whatever portfolio he has today, you can just tack on the end, against all advice. Whatever he's talking about, his decision is against all advice. There is a reason that for decades we have tracked stats based on ethnicity, because there is a correlation to it. So when he says that it's needs-based, and part of that need comes out of their ethnic background, then it's needs-based.
Yeah.
Now, there's a couple of comments here that I want to highlight. Tiffany here says, the data I've seen suggests 45 for everyone is actually the correct target.
Yeah.
So really the thing this highlights most is how feckless the entire system is. Someone needs to take this man-child back to high school. Yeah, look, we're having someone speaking with the great confidence of his 33 years walking this earth and his previous experience as a fucking bank teller, trying to tell us that he has the best plan for all New Zealanders. I love that phrase, all New Zealanders, even though objectively, provably, it is not going to be better for all New Zealanders. There is a very specific slice of the New Zealand pie that is going to be negatively affected by this. So you can't just roll in there and go, all New Zealanders. I love that phrase when they don't want to talk about how this country is made up, because the flip side is, I always think, he means white people.
Yep.
Māori aren't New Zealanders. They're not good, honest Kiwis. And anything that acknowledges that, you're calling me a racist. How dare you? I'm not a racist. I don't have a shaved head and a swastika on my forehead. There are many shades of racism. And a government saying we're all the same against all advice, against decades of data, provably, you are doing a bad thing.
Let's go on, because the former Chief Medical Officer of Te Aka Whai Ora, which is the Māori Health Authority, his name is Dr. Rawiri Jensen. He was also on breakfast this morning, and he was asked what he thought of the government, not the government lowering the age from 60 to 58. He was asked what he thought about the government removing the funding from earlier screening for Māori and Pasifika.
What's your response to the government pulling the funding from the screening program for Māori and Pasifika?
Yeah, really disappointed. There's a couple of features of that. One is you have a national bowel cancer screening program which doesn't meet the needs of Māori and Pacific. Half of all Māori bowel cancer occurs before the age of 60, so it's not much of a screening program if you start at 60. Secondly, you start reaching out to the Māori and Pacific population from age 50 and then you snatch it away. That's not a trustworthy response from our system, and I think Māori and Pacific communities will.
That's a really good point. This is how it goes for you guys. This is what you guys need. We're going to provide it for you guys. But just kidding. Not anymore. Yeah, trust that would remove from the system to do with Māori and Pasifika. Terrible.
Very disappointed.
The Minister, Simeon Brown, was on Q&A yesterday. He talked about the screening tests, and rather than the screening test, he was talking about actual people engaging with the screening test. And actually, that's where the money should go, and then that's where we should be putting our focus on, rather than the testing itself. Do you buy that?
Yeah, look, we've definitely got to do a great job of reaching out to Māori and Pacific communities, and I think one of the things we've got to do is be trustworthy so that we're trusted. Snatching away this part of the program is not a good way of being trustworthy. Having said that, we also need to have a bowel screening program that progressively brings the age down, and I'm in favour of that. It's really important that we bring the age down in terms of the screening program.
And the government is hoping to get that down to 45 to follow Australia, right?
Well, follow all international jurisdictions, that's what we should do. But as we do that, shouldn't we reach out to the population who's most at risk in this earlier age group? You know, half of all Māori and Pacific bowel cancers occurring before the age of 60, that's a group that we've got to reach out to. Snatching it away so that everybody can get it done from 58, do people feel good about that? You know, we're going to do it from the age of 58 by taking it away from a group that really needs it. I don't think New Zealanders expect that from the health system. It's wrong.
And we've got one more clip to show as well, Chippy. We might just roll straight into it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because this is also about something else. My notes have gone skyward. Should we be reducing bowel screenings for all ages? Right, so that's what it's about. Should we be reducing bowel screenings for all ages with Dr. Jensen again? It's just 90 seconds.
So the Minister said the advice we've seen is that the age-related incidence for bowel cancer is similar across all population groups. So the right decision is to reduce it by age across all New Zealanders. How do you respond to that?
Well, the Māori population is younger. That's the age structure that we have. We don't get to live to these great old ages, partly because we have a health system which doesn't deliver very well to Māori and Pacific. The government seems to be walking away from its responsibilities around health equity.
You know, it's deliberately taking this program away for the benefit of all. You know, actually it needs to be doing a better job specifically for Māori and Pacific populations. That means our screening should be earlier.
I can hear voices. I can hear voices saying privilege, and that this should be available for all New Zealanders. What do you say to that voice?
Look, we've got to reduce the age of our screening program. We've got to do that in stages. As we do it in stages, we have to address the population that's most in need, and that is Māori and Pacific populations. Our population's younger, we're getting the bowel cancer. It is preventable. We're going to see dozens of deaths which are preventable. It's going to be brothers and cousins and aunties. You know, it's going to be family members we know who get bowel cancer, and we go, hell, that should have been detected in a bowel cancer screening program.
Yeah.
It's going to cost us.
Yep. One more clip to play you, Chewy, which is the evidence that this is another broken promise from National. But before I do that, do you have any thoughts you want to add in?
I think he mentioned the fact, like, I find it funny, right? We take away from Māori and Pacific Islanders and we say that we give it to all New Zealanders. And then when you reverse the question of going, oh, well, if you guys get it early, you know, some people are talking about privilege. And the answer was, no, I believe that everybody should get it at this young, like if you want to remove race from this discussion and ethnicity from this discussion, you would go, okay, well, when's the trigger point for bowel cancer? Like, just where is it? Okay, let's say it's 45 or 50. You know, well, where's the harm in testing everybody? What do we need to do to test everybody to increase the chance of catching this, regardless of ethnicity? The answer is at the youngest age point. Like, if you really want to make a difference and move the needle here, that's how you do it. But no, we will do it too late for some of you, and we'll just take the European average. Cool. Let's go with that. Because the default status for any government yardstick is clearly European is average. European is mean. European is the standard that everything is measured on. It's bullshit. I love it when you can do this for any sort of stats. Like I love the things that like when they invented seat belts, they were good for men and they injured women because the mannequins that they used were men. The average air conditioning temperature in an office building is too cold for women because it's the right temperature for men.
Yeah,
like we keep using this, the white male standard for everything. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. Just follow the data. You collect the data, you look at the data, you make decisions based on the data, not throw it out and go on vibes. Simeon.
This often happens, yeah? What often happens is I get an idea in the middle of a show. And so very quickly, I've just looked this up, Chewy. Because, I've made the mistake tonight because I should have thought of this before, but we should make sure we think of this every time. Because when they talk about costs, they never give us numbers. So what is the cost of bowel screening now? Like, what does it cost the country, bowel cancer screening? This Google's already scraped this document for me. And you ready for this? According to available information, the estimated annual cost to a fully implemented bowel cancer screening program in New Zealand would range from 24 million to 53 million. And that would cover from 60 to 74. So let's add another 20 years in there and say it's 100 million. $100 million. And you know what I'm about to say next?
That's such a small amount in a government budget.
So just so you're clear, from 60 to 74 be between 24 and 53. So call it 75. So 75 million for that lot, 75 million to go down 15 years as well. So to get it to 45, to go 45 to 74, actually that wouldn't quite work because some of those people who are 45 then wouldn't be getting screened after 60 or 50. But even if it did, so we're looking at $150 million to have bowel cancer screening done from 45. Now, Chewy, remind me again, has this government emptied their coffers of any significant chunk of money for any reason they didn't need to? Or have they been really tight with the budget all the way through and they've had no spare money to splash around?
Been laser focused on the cost of living.
Because obviously, if they haven't got 150 million, well, actually, let's say it's 75 million because they're already spending 75 million. So they can't find another 75 million. Sometimes I have this memory and I can't quite pick what it is. It's got something to do with rental properties and landlords, and the number 300 million comes to mind. Hang on. No, I'm wrong. Isn't it 3 billion? 3 billion. So they can't afford another 75 million. That would immediately, my number, remember, immediately go back to 45 years of age. 150 million total. Let's even say 200 million total. So they can't afford another 100 billion. I'm trying to be generous. But they can give 3 billion back to landlords who didn't need it and didn't ask for it.
So I've asked Google a couple of questions here as well, based on bowel cancer in New Zealand. So we've got a number to screen bowel cancer much younger than what the government wants to do, and it seems to be a pretty good bang. Is it good value for money, though? What's the cost of treating bowel cancer in New Zealand? It ranges between tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars to treat someone for bowel cancer. Okay, so let's take a medium point and say like $50,000. Does that sound fair?
Sure,
How
fair.
many people get bowel cancer in New Zealand each year? 3,300 people, they reckon.
Mm-hmm.
So what's that? 50,000 times 3,300. So there's $165 million.
Okay.
So it's easier to treat something and catch it sooner, right? Like so there's what we've always been saying whenever these guys, your 33-year-old bank tellers, come in and talk with great confidence about something he knows nothing about. It's the cost of everything. We know the cost of everything, but we're so short-term focused that we can't look at the fact of, like, if we spend this money, we save some money.
Mm.
Like, if you want to take human misery and ethnic decisions out of the whole thing, which they clearly want to, then just look at it purely on an economic pros and cons there, that this is worth the money. I'm not wrong, am I?
I don't think so. It's just so infuriating as well. Look, I like Jenny Makeoff and I like breakfast. I like what they're doing, but you know, a couple of fucking idiots from the bottom of the South Island shouldn't be coming up with these questions when they have no access to get them answered. How much, Mr. Brown, are we spending on bowel cancer screening per year right now? How much would it cost to drop it immediately to 45? Sorry, what? Another 100 million? Sorry, Mr. Brown, how much tax are landlords getting in tax reimbursements and write-offs? So what was that? How much was that break fee? Because you guys ballsed up the ferry thing? Oh, 300 million. So that could have covered 3 years of saving New Zealanders' lives, making it 45. Because then you know what, Mr. Brown? Then you wouldn't have had to worry about the carve out for Māori and Pasifika, because they'd come under the 45 and they'd probably see more. Yes, Jerry.
Chat, just fucking brace yourself. From the depths of the 6th of June of last year, Transport Minister Simeon Brown reveals $1.6 billion boost for pothole fund.
So we couldn't do 1.7.
When it's Simeon Brown.
What about 1.7 billion on potholes, and then just take 100 million of that away and fix some people's bowel cancer? How about that?
this is what I made. The transport budget is $64 billion.
Frustrating. Look,
Like,
I'm gonna
it's
just
fiddling around the edges and just go, no, we just want to keep it in the constrained little box. We just want it here. We don't want to talk about any other issues, even though I know that I had a personal cause that I was champion because I wanted to stand next to potholes and run the government out. $1.6 billion.
And let's just wrap up now and just to hold them accountable for one more thing. Because remember what we've said for a couple of years now. We will hold this government accountable to what they expected of the last lot and what they set for themselves. Paddy Gower talked in one of the debates pre-election about bowel cancer, and Mr. Luxton made some promises.
Talking about bowel cancer screening. It's our second biggest cancer killer. 1,300 Kiwis are dying from it every year, and they are getting younger and younger. There was a global pandemic.
Just going to go back. I didn't reset it. Here we go.
And younger. But caught early, there's a 90% chance of survival. Sitting in our audience right up there is Amy Rose Yates. She's got stage 4 terminal bowel cancer, and she's in her early 30s. The national age for screening in this country is 60. Her question is, will either of you lower the age of screening and save the lives of Kiwis?
Yeah, I'd like to do that. And we've also said we'd like to do it on breast cancer screening. We're extending it from 69 to 74, saving 65 lives. It makes sense that we should do the same on bowel cancer.
So what will you bring it?
Because, Paddy, here's the problem, right? We have a 15% higher mortality rate on cancer than the equivalents in Australia do. And so we actually have to close that cancer gap.
So how are you closing that gap now, Mr. Luxton? Remember, it is easy, as Hamilton says, to win, but governing is hard. Governing is hard, Mr. Luxton. You've made the promises when you're in opposition. Governing's hard. How are you going to close that gap?
Time.
Okay, so the bowel cancer screening, do you want to bring it down as well, Chris Hipkins? Will you
Yes,
make
absolutely, I do.
So you'll make that commitment to bring it down?
Absolutely.
All right, so both of you, I just need... We just need to press further on it because I do want to sort this out. The age in Australia is 50 or 45 if you ask for it. Will you commit to matching Australia on bowel cancer screening?
Yeah, we did the same on breast cancer. We looked at what happened in Canada, the UK and Australia. It's 74, and I think we should use those same measures.
So you'll bring it down to that?
There you go. Now, you know what they're going to do now. Unfortunately, one question Paddy didn't ask was, in your first term? Because they're going to go, yeah, we've brought it down to 58, and then we'll work our way down towards 45, just like we promised. But we all know that that's horseshit. That's the shell game that we've often talked about with politics, moving the shells around so you can't see where they are. So there you go, broken promise.
Come on, Paddy. We know you watch the show. Just remind him. Like, you seem to be really wrapped up in the fact that you had someone with cancer in the audience. Where's the follow-up?
Yeah, that was a little bit uncomfortable, wasn't it? Because, like, unfortunately for that, a very sad situation for that lady, she wouldn't have been caught up in a 45-year-old screening anyway. So it's a bit weird. It does feel a little bit like, you watch Trump at the State of the Nation in the crowd, and the person there who lost a family member too. It just felt a little bit, I don't know. It's just weird. I wouldn't like if there had been a person who got diagnosed at 55 and they would have got caught at 50 or 40. That makes more sense. But it felt like just the kind of stage show of having someone for the sake of having them, which is unfortunate. Hey, look, let me just say one other thing, because there's another announcement made about the government today, and I'll give a bouquet here. I'm not saying that this is a carte blanche bouquet because I do want to know the details, but they've promised to clear the backlog of surgeries by using public money to fund private hospitals. Now, before anybody jumps on me about that, if it is just literally that, clearing the backlog, like ACC does all the time, ACC will pay a private hospital to, do an operation. Yeah. If it's just that, And it's not therefore then going to be from now on we're funneling all of our money to the private. I actually have no issues, in fact would support trying to get some of those people on waiting lists for years, their surgery done by government money going to private entities just to get that surgery done. So I'll happily, as long as it's as simple as that and there's no fishhooks in this policy, happy give that to my support. So give them some credit when credit is due. Now we'll see if there's any fishhooks, but at its most simplistic, if we don't have the ability to clear up the backlog in the public system now, utilizing the private system to do it, I mean, if you're on that waiting list, you'd be like, woohoo, we've won lotto, so go for it.
Here's a nice little thing to bring up, because obviously the health budget is fucking hard done by, right? I might have been prompted by someone in the chat there, Gary. I see you. I wonder how much tax revenue cannabis would have brought in.
2 billion.
Yeah,
that was the estimate.
Actually, it seems like it might be closer to 3, okay. But let's say 2 or 3 billion.
Yeah,
in tax revenue if people just got their head out of their ass on cannabis and realized, look, we can fund some of the things that we want to do if we stop doing prohibition on something that is readily available as is.
Yeah. And that police basically just turned their blind eye to it anyway. Shit, bro, you should have been with me at Waitangi. It was the dominant smell just walking around everywhere in Paihia or Waitangi, just on the side of the road, everywhere. So, and police were everywhere. They don't pay attention to it anymore. They don't care about it.
So what you're saying is that it's a waste of police time and a way of funneling untaxed revenue to gangs.
Yep.
And if we maybe took a sensible adult look at that, we could fund bowel screening to the appropriate level for truly all New Zealanders. Not Simeon Brown's version of all New Zealanders, actual all New Zealanders.
Yeah.
Interesting. Right. Something to think on.
There is. Is there anything else to us think on? Any of the chats before we head off for the night?
There was a chat that I really wanted to do because I think it illustrates the power of punctuation.
Okay.
Okay, it's a little bit out of context now, but I am happy with racist Pat.
I am happy with racist Pat. Me too.
I'm happy with racist Pat.
When we had our meetup a couple of weekends ago, I can't remember who it was, but someone said that they wanted me to put like a semicolon or a dash between the BHN and the title of the show, because sometimes it says BHN horrible thing, because it just goes BHN at the start and then it's got the, like, are we killing babies? BHN killing babies. It doesn't really work like that, but so I get it. Ian says, where's my mammogram if everyone is treated equal?
I know that's meant to be a funny comment, but men do get breast cancer.
Yeah. So I'm sure they don't get mammograms though, because you need to have flesh to push between the things. I must figure it out.
Pat, you and I both have bigger than A cups, so I think we're fine.
The real answer is tax wealth, says Mr. Arvids. Again, says $300 million break fee too. At least they're stimulating the funeral industry. Oh, that's dark. Jeremy with a late fee. Kiwi Bird Luxton chose landlords over screening cancer. Exactly. I think this is one of the questions I would love to ask Mr. Luxton, because it would be very easy to say to him, there's some hard choices that you have to make as a Prime Minister between like this and that, or that policy and that, or that, or that. And he'd go, yeah. And I wanted to go, so why did you pick landlords over bowel cancer?
Why did you pick landlords over any one of these choices? Here's the array of things that you cut.
Yeah. Jeremy says, of all the episodes of the week, this has been one.
First of many.
Number one as well. All right, team. Now,
one thing before we bail, because I've had people mentioning it.
Yeah.
Sit back, Pat. We missed a super chat that happened before the show because it didn't highlight it, but it was talking about that poll, that quite dramatic poll that everybody's talking about, right?
Yeah.
In lots of media, but not on One News. Doesn't feature on their website at all. Wasn't talked about in their broadcast at all. Sort of very obvious by its absence. and there was a question asked of like what's up with that basically. And sorry, I've lost the name of the person that did the super chat, and I'm sorry it didn't highlight it, but I did want to mention it because it's a good point.
It could just be that they don't want to highlight someone else's. I mean, they wouldn't show the TV3 poll either if it came up on that night. It could just be as simple as that because they do their own polling. I'll give you one other thing as well, seeing we're here.
They do their own polling. That could be a reason why.
But that's what I'm saying.
One
used as their own polling. It could just be that. Okay, here we go. FeedSpot lists the top podcasts in the country. Don't know how they list that. Probably by attractiveness of hosts.
Are we at the top?
We go
going the wrong way.
15 is business owners. 14 is New Zealand history.
It's too far.
Everyday investor. Shared lunch. Tech podcast. History of Aotearoa. Creative Matters podcast. Gone by
now we're getting into the good stuff. Gone by lunchtime.
Aotearoa
Nice.
Rugby Pod. That's Chewy's favourite podcast. Property Market Podcast. DOC. All Blacks Podcast. Parliament Podcast number 2. Midday Report.
I was going to say you're losing me, Pat. It's taking too long. What's going on?
I think it's a scam. I think we got sent this email by people saying, "Come and check out where your podcast is." I suspect everybody who received it is number 1 on this listing. But I mean, I don't know.
I
if
don't
you're
care.
a podcaster,
I got a screen grab this to send it to my mum.
if you're a podcaster and you've had an email from FeedSpot, then tell me if you were number 1 as well, because that's sort of what I expect. But yeah, we should use this in our next entry form for something. Number 1 podcast in the country.
We're the top. We're the best podcast. Don't look into it. Just
very funny. All right, guys. Thanks for being with us tonight. Now, this week we have Barbara Edmonds coming to join us on Thursday night. Barbara is coming to talk about the infrastructure. What do you call it? Conference going on. Excuse me. And I'm back. The
you like that party
infrastructure.
trick? Pat can cough silently. Yeah. It's phenomenal.
The infrastructure conference going on Thursday, Friday. She's speaking on Friday. She's joining us on Thursday. She'll have been attending it all day Friday, so I'll get a rundown. Remember, next Monday. It's a bit weird saying Chippy will be here next Monday because, to be honest with you, anything could happen between now and then. But as we stand right here, Chippy will be with us next Monday as well.
Help us settle a debate, whether it be thoughtful or funny, even if we're all creatures of hate. It's a fine line that we're walking together. For better, push aside the temptation to berate. Let's take a note of the corners we stand in. As many points as the hairs on my chinny chin chin. When the news that we're watching is hairy, knowing all the things that we need to be wary of. Like the rich have the hand out for rewards, while the many have to work at what they can't afford. And the rest of us ain't paying attention, or maybe have questions we're too worried to mention. Other media is still dwelling on trivial facts, vetting peas from the rice and the mice from the rats, and picking and choosing a warpath to run, linking ourselves with the hill to die on. It's gotta come down to a welcoming vibe, with an A and a self and a higher in mind. All heavily either this way or that, and we'll be analyzed by what Julie and Pat, with the evil in the world trying to mess with your head, and you're sitting on the couch, you're thinking chivalry's dead. Each night, 2 nights, they're gonna sing you to bed. It's Big Hairy News.
All right, guys. We'll catch you tomorrow night from 9 p.m. for another edition of Big Hairy News. Nothing else from me, really, Chewy. Anything from you?
No, I've gone overtime, and I apologise to one and all.
All right, guys.
Respect your time more.
Catch you from tomorrow, 9 p.m. for another edition of Big Hairy News. Hooroo.
Cheers, Van.